Hello, I'm Todd Phillips, the editor of Canadian Auto Dealer. I'm here today within an Ontario Chrysler dealership that's open today. And we're joined by Todd Bourgon, the executive director of the TADA. So Todd, I'm glad to be here today. I made an appointment and followed the proper protocols. Everything was in place when I came in here, which was great. Great to see him with S&B Motors in Keswick, a Chrysler dealership. So this is a similar situation that's across the province today. Dealerships are starting to reopen. So what does the announcement mean for the dealerships?
Well, I think it means that they can see that there's light at the end of the tunnel from what everyone's been dealing with the last couple of months. A, the uncertainty of when, and B, are we quote unquote going to be able to survive without knowing exactly when we were going to get back into market. By appointment only doesn't mean that we're wide open, that's for sure, but it certainly is a game changer by being able to have people back in the dealerships to start to work like they're used to working. I had a good conversation with Mike Stollery about a week and a half ago, the founder of AutoIQ, the chairman of AutoIQ, and he sits on a global panel where they meet virtually with, I think he said, 10 people from around the world. And he was mentioning that there's other countries where when they did start to reopen and they were able to get the showrooms open even by appointment and just having people in dealerships, that the sales numbers changed obviously significantly and quite quickly. So when I heard that, and we certainly heard what we heard on Friday about these openings, and I think there was just a great sense of relief and certainly happiness that our dealers can get back to work.
So while we're past this phase, dealerships are starting to reopen. As the industry rebounds back, it's going to take a while. There's more work that is going to be done for the associations and nationally to work with governments and such. What are some of the plans that we can see next coming from in terms of recovery?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Todd, because I certainly don't want to give the impression that, hey, Friday was the day and we're through this, we can all go on vacation. I mean, we've been working hard up until that point. We still have a lot of hard work to do, both at the provincial level and working at the national level with the CADA. So recovery is the word of our meetings that we're having and have been having, quite frankly, for a few weeks. When this gets reopened, what does that look like? Yes, we're going to be leaning hard on the feds. We're going to need a federal scrappage program for sure. Like right now, from a provincial perspective, we'll be leaning on them for certain things. But certainly the province doesn't have the fiscal capacity with everything else that they have on the table just to be the only player that gets the economy going. So it's going to be a joint effort, certainly between the provinces, the feds, and also, when you look at the sectors of our business, it's going to have to come from everybody that's been participating up until now in terms of helping out. So, yeah, that'll be our next focus, is to start to look at how we continue with the recovery and how we remain sustainable and how we remain liquid. No different than when we set out from the very beginning. And so that's where we're at today. And I'm certainly encouraged that the numbers that, like I mentioned earlier, that we've seen out of other countries and other provinces that were allowed to reopen, even just on a scaled back level like we are now, is that the results have been very encouraging.
Well, I can tell you, we posted a story about it opening on LinkedIn, and tremendous views and comments and reaction. I think dealers and the industry as a whole have been looking for something positive to look forward to. So tell us a little bit about what went on behind the scenes, because obviously Ontario dealerships made a very short list of businesses that are able to open, and there were some strict protocols. We'll cover that a little bit in a second. But tell us what went on behind the scenes in terms of some of the lobbying and some of the cases that had to be made to the Ontario government to say, like, hey, dealerships can operate safely.
Well, I think, I won't back all the way up to the beginning of March, but, we made the first two cuts, as I call it. Showrooms were open, the first cut, and then when they were closed, services were deemed essential. So, a lot of what was going on behind the scenes then was convincing the government that certainly the service sector of our industry should not be closed, that it is essential. And we've heard a lot of stories over the last little while about first responders needing their vehicles and people just needing to get around and get groceries, little things that, sometimes we just take for granted. So we were certainly successful in that. And then not the real work, but certainly the work began. And that is to, okay, like, how are we going to position ourselves now for when they're going to reopen showrooms? And I think the key here was we listened to what the government told us that they would listen to. And, I think I mentioned last time you and I chatted, I was lucky enough to have a one-on-one conversation with the Premier, where, the guidelines were pretty straight and the rules of engagement were set pretty straight. not going to be bullied, not going to be pushed into making decisions that aren't right for the health and safety of the Ontario population, and I'm going to listen to the health experts. And once we knew that those are the rules of engagement, we realized then that we had to play a role in giving them the opportunity to say that we were a healthy place and a place that was safe for both consumers and our staff to work in once they felt that we had gotten through the curve. So we went to work on producing guidelines. We had help from the National Association of the CADA. We worked with various ministries in getting their input, and we even worked with the regulator in Ontario to do that. So it was collaborative, that's for sure. I can't say enough about the work from the other provinces. We all shared and tried to help each other out through this to make sure that we were all on the same page. And also Tim's leadership at the CADA has been unwavering. And so as we all got together and we all put our nose down to knowing what we had to produce, we knew that was the way to do it. We also knew that the government doesn't want to hear 500 voices from one sector. The government wants to hear one. And I can tell you that I certainly have some runway on that one from the old OADA and TADA. If you remember those two acronyms 10 years ago, there were two associations representing new car dealers in Ontario. And it was extremely difficult to get work done because government would tell us, you come with two voices, and a lot of times the message isn't the same. We don't want to hear from two voices. We want to hear from one, and we want it to be consistent. So we knew that that's what we had to do, and that's why we strategically looked at timing. When the Premier gave a window of opportunity in his announcements that the curve was starting to change and that he was going to start looking at opportunities to slowly start to reopen the province, that's when we amped up our campaign on a letter writing campaign to MPPs. We did have protocol manuals done for both service and sales that had been vetted, and quite frankly, we were ready to go. So when Friday's announcement came, it was about 6 weeks of positioning ourselves for that opportunity to demonstrate to them that we were ready as an industry. And I have to point out that when I saw that list, I won't lie to you, I wasn't shocked that we were on it. I was pretty sure that we would be in phase one only because we were one of the last ones to go when they shut us down. But I will say that when I looked at the other retailers on there, I felt pretty proud of my team and what they had accomplished. And Frank Notte, who's my government relations director, I don't think has slept more than 4 hours a night for the last sort of 50 days, and I'm not exaggerating. And the efforts that he's put in and keeping all of us, including the dealers that were getting frustrated, and I certainly understand why they were frustrated, that we had to do things either a different way or try another tactic. He kept us on task. And when I saw the other retailers that were not on that list on Friday, it was a proud moment, and certainly a moment where I was happy, relieved for a lot of people in our industry that have been hurting, and that this would help them out immensely. So Friday was a good day.
Well, that's great. The other thing is that you don't get to that level of connectivity with governments without lots of work been done over the months and years leading up to that. So kudos to you and the CADA for building those relationships. So.
Yeah, and I mean, you're absolutely right, Todd. I mean, it's not about patting ourselves on the back here at all, but certainly it is to point out that every province is in the same particular situation we're in. They have a lot of lobbyists in each province. I mean, I think our province alone has over 3,000 registered lobbyists, which means there's 3,000 people beating on that door at Queen's Park trying to tell them that we need to be next and why. So, the fact that we broke through that clutter, as I like to call it, made me feel good. Frank was regularly speaking with, I'll rhyme some names off: Fideli's office, Sakaria's office, Thompson, McNaughton's office. I mean, these are all significant players, as you would appreciate, that have the ability to listen and have the ability to tell cabinet and the government that things are good in this environment or not, quite frankly. So, yeah, couldn't agree more with you.
Well, one other thing is it's also important, we talked earlier about the importance for dealers across the province and across country, frankly, to adhere to these new protocols, because there has been so much work to get them into place.
Yeah.
This clampdown, it didn't come with just, fully open. It came with a bunch of rules and guidelines. So maybe speak a little bit to, your message to your dealer body just about having to adapt and the day that they do come back and the new teams are joining again, to make sure that they follow these protocols. I can tell you today at a dealership, there's signage everywhere, and I had to follow a bunch of protocols for just even being in here. So it's good to see it's here at this dealership in Keswick. But tell us why it's so important that dealers just don't slack at all on their adherence.
Yeah, I mean, so let's go back to the list that we saw on Friday, and let's compare ourselves to people that might not be on that list, for example. It goes without saying that other industries are going to be watching us, and so is government, so are bylaw officers, and they're going to be making sure that that we're doing it correctly. Standards have been published by the government. Social distancing in our province still exists, so there is still that 6-foot rule. And so this is really, I know it's been tough for everybody, and I'm certainly very, very cognizant of how tough it's been for the dealers, but this is a huge opportunity. This could have come 2 weeks from now where it caused even more trouble in our industry, or it may not have come at all. So I really just hope that we look at this as an opportunity and we respect the opportunity we've been given, that we play by the rules, because I think it's important that we become the poster child for how to do this right and not the opposite. And truly, the reality is that if we don't, this could be reversed. If there becomes another issue in our province and they feel that they have to, trim businesses back again, it could be reversed if we're not demonstrating that we've got it down right and that we know how to do it. So, my message to any dealer, whether they're doing it right now or considering how to do it, just please pay attention to the details, and we'll get through this. It's a huge opportunity.
That's a great advice. And one thing I wanted to pivot to a little bit is just a sign of hope. I was talking to the dealer principal here today. They're looking for some hope, sales picking up, obviously, during this tough time. We had talked about one category of buyers, and there's some research starting to get out about people who may actually want to purchase a new vehicle that may not have been in the market before because of whether they don't want to do ride sharing or public transit, that kind of stuff. Could you speak to sort of some of the optimism of, as the market comes back?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the last time you and I spoke on here, I mean, the one thing I said is that when we get through this, there is definitely some optimism and there's going to be some opportunity.
Please, first line 2.
Isn't that a welcome voice to hear somebody at the actual dealership?
Well, hopefully they just pulled apart. I'm not going to get in the way of that, so I'll let you.
That's right. So, my point is that the opportunities that exist may not be the typical ones that were in front of our nose before this happened. So when I hear of dealerships that are doing some great things in their communities where they're literally handing their loaner vehicles over to doctors and nurses and first responders at no charge so that they can use them to get to work during this time, it tells me that those nurses, doctors, first responders do not want to be in their family vehicles. They don't want to contaminate them or take that risk. So they literally are using these vehicles as opportunity to basically isolate themselves as they commute to work and back. So when this is over, obviously not all dealers are going to be giving out free cars for all the obvious reasons, but certainly that's a market that I think that, in the past maybe was just a 1-car family environment that now you're seeing a 2-car family environment. So there's going to be opportunity there. The other one that we've heard a lot about and a lot of different people have spoke on, but I'll just reiterate, and that is people that may or may not be comfortable in the ride sharing or the public transit domains any longer, where the physical distancing certainly on some of those and some of those modes of transportation be very, very difficult. And so I would like to think that those people, as they're going to consider, how they're going to get themselves move around, will obviously be looking at a vehicle for purchase. So, is it guaranteed we're going to see resurgence? Of course not. But is there opportunity? Absolutely. And we have the ability to talk to those markets now. You and I both know the manufacturers, they're going to come out with guns a-blazing. There's a lot of wholesale that we know. We've felt the pressure ourselves from some of them over the last few weeks that are on either boats or on trucks and on their way into our marketplace. And so the programs to move that, I think, are going to be phenomenal. And I think that we'll look back on this as, will business be the same? It'll never be the same in many aspects, just in terms of how you physically, participate in the actual showroom. But I certainly think that there's some great opportunity that can come to this. And I think that's what we have to focus on, and that's what we have to look at.
Well, great answer. Just one last area, Todd. We've been going through this for some time now. We're not at the end of it. We're just in the middle of the start of a new phase. But nonetheless, it's time to take stock maybe and just look at some of the work dealers have done in their communities during this. I know yourself, you've been active in helping deliver PPE, and the TADA Foundation has got a van delivering different supplies. And dealers have stepped up and shown really they are the business people at the heart of their community. They're making a difference. They're giving back, even at a time that's really tough for them. What are a couple of stories that really make you proud that you've heard out there?
Well, I think there's a lot out there, right? So I'm not going to give. I don't think I should name names because I'm going to forget somebody. But when you hear of dealerships giving out their loaner fleet, for example, and some of these fleets that they would have, as you know, are significant. You're talking 70 cars in one situation, to first responders to use them to get to work. We have a dealer in our community that also owns RV locations, and they donated a lot of their RVs to local hospitals to put them in parking lots. Like, those are great stories. We sent out a note last week asking some of our members to tell us some of the great things they've done in the communities. We want to hear about them. Cliff Lafreniere, as you know, our president, writes an article in the Star every week, and we wanted to start talking about these great things. And I was so pleasantly surprised of the amount of dealers that have given that I know are hurting financially. I know they're hurting. We've had conversations with their owners, their group leaders, but they're still giving back, whether it was to food banks or donating meals or delivering meals. It was really, really something that was quite special to see. So, those types of things always help us remember that, we've got great people and we're resilient. We're a resilient bunch, so to speak. The other piece that sometimes gets missed in this is that, yes, the dealers are doing great things in their communities, but you know what? I don't want to forget the vendors. When this first started, yourselves included, you guys made a business decision to stay open. It would have been really easy for you guys to shut down. I'm sure that the ad revenue has been a whole lot less the last few weeks than it was before this started, right? But I'm not going to get into naming all the vendors, but there's a ton of them out there that really stepped up, and they really did. And the ones that stepped up, I gotta believe they'll be rewarded, short term and long term, when we get through this. They really will, because dealers are not going to forget this. This wasn't the slow bleed to change that we saw in 2008.
Park line 3, please. Park line 3.
It's okay. This was a pandemic where it wasn't slow to come. We literally fell off the cliff overnight on this one. So I really have to believe that some of these people that have stepped up in the vendor community, they're really going to see rewards to it. Even our national association, the CADA, kudos to them. They run the Benefits 360 program. A lot of our dealers pay, a lot of money each month for the benefits of their employees. And they gave a 2-month holiday on those premiums, which, again, these things, they all contribute. And so I'm really proud of those that stepped up. And I truly hope that they get rewarded for the ones that did step up. So.
Well, appreciate you taking time today. One thing I'm not going to do today is interrupt a part sale or a vehicle sale. I'm actually in a vehicle and a dealership, and I can see customers out walking the lot. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Ontario anyway, and it's a great sight to see. So thanks for joining us today and sharing your information with us.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate it. Be well.
Okay, thank you. Signing off.